Welcome to the Leadership Passport. I'm delighted to introduce my guest today, Mr. Greg Smith. Greg is currently the Vice President of International School Services, ISS, with responsibility for the delivery of services across Asia, with particular focus on school management and consultancies. He's based in Shenzhen, southern China. He's Australian, originally from Perth, and in 2005, after a great career in public schools across the big state of Western Australia, he got the chance to be interim elementary principal at the International School of Beijing. He loved it. International education seemed like the way to go, so much so that he's now had 18 years in schools across China and Laos. He took a few years out of schools to co-found the company Schrole, which shook up recruitment, riding the wave of enhanced technology. He shared this journey with his wife, also an Australian teacher, and two kids who are now resident in Australia and the other one in the US. Welcome, Greg.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, it's good to join you here. And I sounded much more impressive when I'm listening to somebody talking about me than I am in my own head.
Very good. Very good. Well, I mean, you shared with me a little bit earlier an interesting story about a football statistics tracker that you designed and were playing around with in the 80s. Tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, this could have been one of those path less traveled and could have ended up being a very different pathway. So back in the early 80s, I was involved in the football club, and we also were, as a teacher, I was involved in helping kids with disabilities, and so we had this input device that we used as a way of being able to say, well, that's a pass, it's a hand pass, it's a tap, it's a tackle. And so we devised this thing on something that was a really small computer back in the day. But by developing this thing, we were able to track all the statistics that the football club were making. Well, I did it for a little while, and it was a bit of fun, and then stepped back into doing my teaching and had a great career there. But the guys who did the same sort of program are now operating a $5 billion company, and that's one of those missed opportunities. But I guess I can't really regret anything that happened that way.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's it's an interesting story. It's funny how things like that, you come about by happenstance. You had a different use for it and found a great spot for it. And yeah. Fantastic.
And of course, nobody joins the teaching profession to get rich. So I obviously made the right decision there in choosing not to get rich.
Yeah, there's none of us are driving around in Ferraris or Lamborghinis, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so I've got a really annoying question for you to start with. If your leadership style was a song or a movie, what would it be and why?
Ooh, that is a good question. Tempted to say something like "Everybody Wants to Rule the World" by Tears for Fears, but I think the truth to be, do you remember the Band-Aid songs? Do They Know It's Christmas? That sort of thing, where they got a whole bundle of really good people together and then created some music, and you couldn't really tell who was the leader and who was the star within it, but there was just a really good quality stuff. I'd like to think that's what it was, that I have been fortunate enough to be surrounded by really good people, and we've made some good music along the way. So, do they know it's Christmas time? I think that would be the one I'd like to say is my song.
Amazing. So if we talk, get into a little bit now about your leadership journey. What inspired you to get into leadership in international education?
I've told a few people over the years as a mentor now, is to say, just look for an open door. If an open door comes along, stick your head in and see whether it's interesting on the other side. So I can't say that I was inspired to necessarily see myself as moving through a leadership journey. I definitely have a sense of service and a desire for order, and I think that's been important. And I think it's important to leadership is that if you're doing it for your own purposes, then I think you're probably not going to be giving the best to the people that you lead and the communities that you serve. So I'd say part of what was motivating me and driving me towards leadership was that sense of service. That if I'm there, I should step into roles that and responsibilities that are necessary to fill. And the other part of it is I'm a Virgo, and so as a Virgo, you're either destined to be a bus driver or someone who goes around trying to create order. And I was lucky enough to be in that group that wants to create order. So when I come into any organisation, I'm generally curious enough and inquisitive enough to see where things could be changed or upgraded, and I like to bring order to places. So I think those two things combined managed to give me the reason to look for leadership. So, but I do think that the sense of service is probably the one that drives me most of all.
Mm. And once you got into leadership and a range of leadership positions that you've had, is there a defining moment somewhere along the way that really, defined your leadership journey?
Hmm. I throw my memory way back, and I'm seriously talking way back. This was in my first practicum, so I wasn't even a proper teacher yet, and just loving what I was doing. I was a primary school teacher, and just every day was a joy. And I was out at a little town called Balladoo, which probably has a population of 85. It's 3 hours out of Perth, and this practicum was a 2 week time, really learning the trade. And my gosh, you learnt the trade really well as a teacher in those sort of places. And the principal of the school there, an old wise man who was probably 35, with with the benefit of hindsight, took me aside and he said, "At some stage, you're going to get sick of doing what you're doing. You want to think about how your career might pan out. Do you like the idea of being a principal? Do you want to be a curriculum director? Do you want to be dean of students? Do you think about what's next?" And I often think about fellow Bob Bycroft was his name, that he had the wisdom to see in a 19-year-old that he should be planning for the future. That's probably one defining moment, and then I'd say that the prospect of that I was a very young principal when I did become a principal. When a door opened, surprisingly enough, and I became a principal, I think the defining choice that I had there was go in as a youngster and try and fake it till you make it. Tell everybody how clever you were and that you'd been selected because you were going to be the cleverest person in the room, or go in and be humble enough to take expertise from everybody else. And I think I was lucky enough to stumble into that role of saying, "Hey, let's try and do this together. I'll help as much as I can, but let's do this as a team." And that's served me so super well through my career, that I've been lucky to be surrounded by smarter people than me, and we've done some good things together.
Amazing. And, we talked before about you referenced a small town outside Perth in Western Australia, and then working with China and Laos and, all around the world with OSS. Has been a big aha moment in terms of your work across all those different cultures that really stands out to you?
Yeah, yeah. I would say there's actually two moments, but they're connected, and both were books that I read. The first one was on arriving in Beijing back in 2005. I read a book, and it's either called When Confucius Meets Piaget or Piaget Meets Confucius. I can't remember which one it is, but it broke it down for me in a way that showed how the Western mind and the Eastern mind it can be ships that pass in the night. And that was just a mind slap for me to be able to say, look at what's happening in my classrooms and the conversations I have with the community, and understand why some of those messages are going astray. And then a little bit later, and maybe a slightly more sophisticated version of the same message was the culture map, where you looked at the different perspectives that people around the world have, and in those very international communities that we have, and it just helps you to understand, even if you can't fully get on board with some of the approaches that people have, but it lets you understand their perspective and what they may be seeing as differently in what you're doing. And I think that's been a real aha moment for me. It's like, wow, not everybody thinks like a, a West Australian boy from Perth, surprisingly enough. I've got to say, the world would be a whole much better place if everybody did think like me, but that's obviously not something I can aspire to.
I'll have to take your word for that, mate. But look, I, I agree with you 100% that that book, The Culture Map, just a fantastic book that, like you said, I read it around the same time that I moved to China as well. And
Oh yeah.
it kind of, it just, yeah, it helps you to kind of put things into a perspective that you can see, and you've got bits and pieces going on that you can't quite kind of put together, but it kind of crystallizes that all together. And I love how she puts things on a sliding scale. Like, we like to think of this culture is this, and this culture is that, and it's not polar in that way. It's on a sliding scale, and
Mm-mm.
certain cultures have a tendency towards these, but others less so, and it really I'm doing it no justice at all, of course, in my description now, but the book's just wonderfully articulate in wrapping that up and helping you to get your head around it, which I loved.
Yeah, the thing that I really took away from it, as you say, more than the polarities, it's the shades of grey. It's the way that blurring happens at the edges, and so if you can empathise with um, a particular idea, but understand that the spectrum is alive and well and constantly evolving, I think you're in a much better position to, as a leader, to respond to the changing environment that you're always surrounded by.
Yeah. So if we shift a little bit now to some of the realities of leadership, what's the toughest leadership challenge you've faced, and how did you navigate it?
Mm. I'd say without question, COVID times was the most difficult leadership time that I'd faced. And it was we were running a school here in Shenzhen, in China. And so the lockdown was the critical piece. And what that meant was that I just didn't have all of those great people around me all the time. And we were separated by time zones, by distance, um, by the level of angst that people were feeling in different parts of the world. And so every community felt, um, every everyone was stretched thin. There was a degree of fragility and frailty to everybody, and there was just a wave of uncertainty. And they are the things that, as I said, I really like order. They are the things that if you can promote certainty and confidence and resilience, then the order flows from that. So during those COVID times when there was not that stuff and no real way of connecting back to people, because you're either stuck in your own room, or you were unable to bring people to you. Um, that was the toughest time by far. Um, well, technology helped. Um, could I say that there was a successful navigation through that time? You know, the level of success was mitigated by so many factors, but being able to delegate and having those people that you could trust to say, look, you need to take on more, and being surrounded by people who are good enough to do that, and using technology to make connections, both of those things did help in the leadership side of things. Just coming back to those pillars, if you can give confidence and certainty to whatever extent, that's probably the foundation to what we tried to do in that leadership time, was let people know as much as we did. So pouring out information as clearly as we could, as often as we could was the structure that we tried to use.
Mm. So if we think about now, maybe one mistake that's been a learning opportunity for you over the years that's,
Hmm.
you know, shaped how you approach things.
Yeah, I guess this is the typical interview question. So I'll know if I get the job or not if I can tell you something that I made a terrible mistake and learned from. Uh, I, I think most of us, um, when we're in a leadership position, the the thing that is our strength can easily flip over into being our weakness, and that's probably a mistake that I've made more than once. Um, One of my strengths is that I, I, I love connections. So I love to be involved in stuff. I love to make sure that I'm aware of what's going on, that I let other people do stuff, but I want to be around it. So that can sometimes flip over from being a connected, aware, understanding, empathetic leader into um, having full on FOMO. And if you're a full on guy who's got a terrible fear of missing out, like you can get too far down into the weeds, or you can distract people from the directions they're going, or you can be you, know, you can drain yourself. You can drain your own levels of energy because you're trying, particularly in a big complex organization, you're trying to be everything to everyone. So I think that's probably the biggest mistake that I make is not knowing when my FOMO is kicking in and being able to step back and let people have that space.
Yeah. So if we maybe dig into that a little bit, you're talking about then maybe overextending or into,
Yeah,
things like burnout and, making lots of
yeah,
tough decisions all the time. Like, how do you handle that? How do you navigate that on an ongoing basis?
yeah. Huh. Um, I'm probably the worst one to talk about this because I do acknowledge my maybe workaholic is too much, but I love my job. Seriously, I bounce out of work, bounce out of bed, and I love going to work. And so it is hard to give myself that balance. But I think that's always make sure that you love what you do. And if you stop loving it, then look at the reasons for that and make some decisions about what your life is doing, because you should be loving the work that you do and doing the work that you love. So um, I think that's a constant refrain that you have to have in your head to avoid that burnout or the the uh, the, the the stretching too far. Um, the other thing that my kids would recognise me saying immediately and hate me for it is that it's not about the destination; it's about the journey. And so if you can realise that the thing that you're doing is actually the important thing. It's the process. It's the developing of building capacity. It's the combined clarity. It's the getting people on board with the energy that you're trying to create. If you can really focus on being the journey rather than the destination, I think that really helps everybody to share the potential for burnout. It helps you to see where people have got skill sets that just augment what you've got and bring them into it. So that's, I think, is an important thing is to allow people to be part of the journey with you.
And I think that's a great perspective, no matter how much it might annoy your kids, but like you never quite, particularly in education, you never quite get to the destination. Like, there's always so much change and things evolving. You can never say, "Oh,
Right,
we've solved our classroom management. We've solved teaching and learning. We've nailed that. There's nothing more to do. We've arrived."
right.
Like, I don't
Yeah.
think anyone's really at a point where they could say that in any school in the world.
No. Hey, if you're saying it, you're fooling yourself. That's because it's always about the journey.
Yeah. So, is there a leadership practice or habit that's changed the game for you? Something you do daily or regularly that helps you do a better job?
Yeah. When I remember it, when I really try to practice it, the strategic stillness or strategic silence, letting a silence expand a little bit so that you draw stuff out. When we were teachers, that aha moment about, wait time is so critical to be able to get the best out of the kids. Well, it's the same, I think. If you sometimes just be a little bit still, a little bit silent, and you can just get a whole lot more from your team. I just wish I had a little bit better discipline in being able to apply that sometimes.
Good, good. So look, if we sort of cast our minds a bit towards the future now, how do you see international education and school leadership evolving over the next 5 to 10 years?
I think the one word that I would use would be localization. I think the um, the development of the DEI awareness has raised our understanding that there's been generations of really good people that we've passed over because we wanted to have people like ourselves leading international schools, and the refocusing on, let's build the capacity of locals. Let's not just bring in experts from overseas and plonk them in the spot. I think that localization is it's number one. It's going to be a great result for the schools, and the second one is it's going to really enhance the understandings and the use of expertise around the world.
Yeah, and that even applies so much to enrollments in schools, even typically really diverse international schools that are, with a lot of the uncertainty around the world politically and otherwise, that there's more and more locals enrolling in their nearby international or American curriculum or British curriculum schools. So even makes your point even more important that we embrace that localization in all parts of our school.
Yeah, I mean that whole think globally and act locally. Yes, it's a great anthem for so many aspects of our life, and it absolutely applies to education. If we're able to think globally and bring in the best ideas, but we actually foster what we've got locally at our fingertips, that everyone's a winner out of that, I think.
What's one bit of advice you'd give to an aspiring school or education leader?
Oh, it's almost Shakespearean, Hamlet-y. Be true to yourself. Be who you are. Um, it's too exhausting to try and be something else when you're amidst a really complex organisation and trying to move things forward. You've got to be yourself. And if that doesn't fit in a particular location, then there's 10,000 schools. There's going to be a place that works really well for you, but don't try and be something that you're not. Okay, it's not going to be sustainable for you, or it's not going to be good for the school. So yeah, be true to yourself.
Yeah, fantastic advice. And people sniff that out really quick, don't they? The people aren't stupid. I mean, we know that as with kids as well. If there's a hint of not being authentic or genuine, we know our students are straight onto that as a
Yeah,
teacher.
yeah, absolutely. What do they say is that when you can fake sincerity, you've got it made. I mean, that's it's funny, but it's a trap. It's a trap. If you're trying to fake who you are, you're just doing yourself a damage.
Yeah. All right. So if you had a magic wand and you could change one thing about international education or school leadership in this space, what might it be?
Just the one. Um, the sense that we are in competition with each other. Um, the and I know that to some extent there is competition for enrolment, for getting the bums on seats. But the truth of it is that there's a big enough pie to go around if you're creating a good product, and the 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 sense that there is so much more to be gained by being collaborative and cooperative and showcasing what's really good about education and having a foundation for that, and then having some niche differences. That would be the one thing I'd change. And in a really competitive sort of environment, the conversations around this is the only, or this is the best, is detrimental to our real understanding about education, which is that there's something that's right for that so many different ways are right for the appropriate kid.
Yeah, and now that you mention that, I'm thinking back to when I was working in the public system in Queensland in Australia, and there was a director general at the time, and I think based on some research, he turned it into, I guess, one of the slogans, not the right word, but basically said a good school's got a great school up the road. I think what he's trying to
Right.
say is collaboration of, you're working together, everyone wins out of that.
Yeah.
And if you take the kind of isolationist, competitive streak to, to unreasonable ends, it rarely ends well. And, I think I agree with this. There's certainly a lot to it.
Yeah, it's a great slogan. One of the things about where many of our international schools are in the developing world, or in places that have somewhat challenging educational environments, is that there's the lack of sophistication sometimes in the families knowing what good versus ordinary education is about. So the more that we are investing in helping parents to make good choices for their kids, like, everyone's a winner on that. So I think it goes beyond just being good for our own school to be collaborative. It's a community building thing that we really should embrace.
All right. A couple of quick questions to wrap things up, Greg. Your
So
favorite book on life or leadership?
I'm a big fan of Daniel Pink. Um, and I think two of his books are really good for leadership. One's Drive, obviously. If you know that it's what motivates people is them having purpose and mastery and autonomy, then I think that just puts you in a great position to do good things for your team. So I'm a big fan of Daniel Pink's book Drive, and the other one that I love about from Pink is A Whole New Mind, and that's saying that our future is about creativity and bringing things together, and as the rise of AI comes, that it's just reinforcing our humanness is so important. So I love both of those books, and I think they both speak to the sort of leaders that we need in schools, particularly.
Right. What's the strangest, weirdest, or funniest thing you've ever seen in school?
um, Celebrating Pi Mai Lao in Vientiane International School. The way that this society that is so prim and proper and um, worried about how the world sees them suddenly become these monsters overnight, and party animals beyond compare. That was one thing that I will always remember and always appreciate being part of.
Fantastic. One thing you do daily that helps you to lead better?
Um, I walk first thing in the morning. I take some time that it's just me, and the environment. I will sometimes share it with a podcast, but I just spend some time appreciating what the world is, and that just separates me from all the stuff that's always banging on my door.
Yeah, fantastic. And now you can actually spend time with yourself, listening to yourself on a podcast.
Right? How
And
good's that? This is a win-win.
yeah, it's ticking all the boxes. A leader, past or present, you admire.
All right, this is going to be a difficult admission, particularly for an Australian. I don't know whether you like cricket or not, but I'm a cricket fanatic, or cricket tragic. Um, and there's two cricket leaders that have in my lifespan that I've really admired. One of them is Mike Brearley, and the other one's Stephen Fleming. So one's an Englishman and one's a New Zealander. And the reason I really like those guys is that they weren't the best guys in their team, but they raised the ability of their team because they were smart people, and you could see that they'd managed to do some stuff with their teams that just brought the best out in it. So I loved beating them as an Australian, but I really admired those two guys for what they managed to do for their countries.
Great. And finally, best advice you've ever received.
Can I have two?
Sure.
All right, then. So the first one was probably given to me by my mum when I was too young to remember it, but it was yes, you can. And yes, you can is the best advice that you can give to any person, I think. It's like, just, yeah, of course. Why not? Nothing's stopping you. So I'm, I'm sure she gave it to me. I don't remember the particular time, but that's been my motto that I've lived by ever since. And the other one is, it's either a bumper sticker or it's some quote that if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go together. And I think that actually is there's actually some wisdom in that one. It's not just a thing to live by.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's a great place to leave it right there. So thank you so much for joining me today, Greg. I really appreciate it. It's been great talking with you.
Hey, it's been really, really fun, Kevin. Thank you. Great questions. I'll look forward to listening to myself back on my podcast.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Okay. Thanks, mate. Take care.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for listening to the episode. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe, like, follow, etc. Drop a comment below to let me know anything you'd like covered in upcoming episodes or suggestions for future guests. You can also connect with me on Instagram and LinkedIn.